The Kerrville City Council is now in session, and Councilman Gary Cochran will lead us in the prayer and the pledge. Let's stand.
Join me in prayer. Father God, we come before you tonight, humbled to be in your presence. We celebrate that you are in each and every one of our lives. I ask special prayers today for the people that have struggled so mightily during this pandemic. I pray specifically for the people that have lost loved ones, the family members, the friends, the acquaintances. Just hold them close to your heart, Father. I also ask that you be with us tonight as a council to provide leadership and discernment, and to do so with only the wisdom that comes from you. Father, I ask all these things in the most powerful way that I know how, and that's through your Son's name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank everyone for attending, and citizen or public participation continues to be available by calling in via Zoom, emailing, or using the City Hall Dropbox beforehand, and all these instructions are provided online and in the agenda. If anyone present wants to speak on an agenda item, by now they would have been required to sign up when they came into the building, since there are no official public hearings on the agenda. When the speakers are called, they are to come to the podium in front of the stage and begin by stating their name and address. Also, please wear your mask, but when you address the council and citizens from the podium, you may take your mask off so everyone can hear you well. I want you to note that the public comments periods are for council to set aside time to specifically hear from you. Any questions that you might have will not be responded to until after public comments have concluded. Thank you again for your participation. And now we come to the announcements of community interest.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome to everybody tonight. We just have one announcement tonight, but it's one that we're very excited about. If I can get a slide up on the screen. There we go. And that's that the library will be resuming in-person operations next Monday, February 15th at 10 a.m. We're excited about that. Glad to be back in action. Obviously, we'll still be limiting the traffic there because we're still going to try and be COVID compliant, but glad to have patrons back inside. I don't know if you saw, we had an additional press release today that we've got some new computer equipment over there. It's some new software. It's much faster, so we're really looking forward to have people back in. And one day later, the Kerr Regional History Center will also be reopening. It'll be on Tuesday, and it'll be open on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, as it used to be. I don't know if you've been in there, but it's a beautiful building, and there's a bunch of old Tivy annuals in there, so they're a lot of fun to go looking through when you have time. So I've seen Gary's pictures in there from high school. I've seen Kim's pictures in there from
They go back that far?
Check it out. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Council members, anything else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, may I have a few minutes?
Yeah. Okay.
I don't have slides to go with mine, but I have several things I'd like to mention. First, I'd like to say congratulations to our Gil Salinas. He's been named as one of the top executive directors, top 50 executive directors for economic development in North America. So he's ours, and we should be proud of that. I'd also like to thank everyone who's been involved in the Kerrville Festival of the Arts in the past. As most of you probably know, they have canceled that event and it will not be held anymore, but it was a fun event for downtown, brought lots of people, and the team that worked on that worked very, very hard. So I just want to thank them for what they've done in the past. I would like to give you some food relief numbers these are coming from Mustard Seed Ministries at Light on the Hill. During last year, 2020, 472,735 pounds of food were shared. 7,500 families, equaling almost 21,000 people, received food. We averaged 269 unpaid volunteers every month to make it happen. And the numbers that I have, they even figured out how much that would have been if those volunteers had been paid. It would have been about $132,000. So that was great. Light on the Hill has a Chef Marcus Willis. He has last year he provided 22,000 home cooked, and they really were, he cooks them in the kitchen, meals to families and individuals. Those are given out on the weekly drive-through pantries. And if we had paid the retail price for the food that was received from the San Antonio Food Bank, plus the prepared meals, the cost would have been almost $1 million. We spent $125,500. So great partnership with the San Antonio Food Bank. They do wonderful, wonderful things. And I also wanted to remind people the food relief account with Community Foundation is still open, and over the last 2 months we've had an additional almost $12,000 put into that account from local citizens. So that's great, and thank you all. The other couple things I wanted to mention, if people are not aware of the newsletter, our own Stuart does this, and you can sign up for it online, and it recaptures what went on last month, and he does a super job. Thank you, Stuart. But I don't know if people know about that. The other thing that I just learned, and I just think it's such a neat thing, it will come on your phone, and it is it's not an app, but it is a text that you can get that will let you know of all the meetings that are happening, when there are vacancies on committees. Is there anything else that's on that? That's probably the best part of it. But if you go to the I Want To on the city site and hit I want to sign up for and go down to news alerts, you can sign up for that. And I've just here for 2 or 3 years, I didn't know about it. It's absolutely wonderful. And if you have trouble finding it, get hold of one of the city staff, let me know, and we'll get you hooked up, because it really is a neat thing. And the last that I wanted, I'm sorry I've taken so much time here, but there's good news. Construction has started on the Doyle Community Center. So we are excited. So thank you for all that time.
All right, okay. And now we come to 2 presentations, and I'm going to ask Chief McCall and Amber Needy if you will come up here on the stage.
Chief, are you going to tell over this story? I would love to tell the story. Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity tonight to recognize 2 of our very brave citizens. It's highly unusual to get to recognize our citizens for actions such as this, and to have 2 in 1 month is even that much more big volume, which is always our citizenry here in Kerrville, here in fact. Citizens here. I want to January, officers responded to police reaching out to report of an assault. In the month of January, officers responded to Peterson Medical Center for a report of an assault. Upon the officers' arrival, they met with the victim and her friend, Amber Needy. Officers observed the victim to have several serious injuries, to include lacerations to the head and right arm, swelling to the face, arms, chest, and back. Ms. Needy told officers she was on her way home when she received a call from her friend. Upon answering the telephone call, she could hear her friend screaming, "He is hitting me." And she heard what sounded like a fight in the background. The phone disconnected, so she immediately drove to her friend's residence. When Miss Needy arrived, she could hear screaming coming from inside the residence, so she attempted to make entry into the residence. The door was locked, so she grabbed a tire iron and pried the door open. Upon entering the residence, Miss Needy observed the suspect kicking her friend in the head while she was on the floor. At this point, her friend was covered in blood, and she began to defend her friend by threatening the suspect with the tire iron. This action gave her enough time to grab her friend and begin dragging her to the door. As she was dragging her friend to safety, the suspect continued to kick the victim. Ms. Needy got the victim to her car, all while fighting off the suspect. Once in the car, she drove her friend to Peterson Regional Medical Center for treatment. The officers who responded and investigated this incident believe that if Amber Needy had not acted as quickly as she did, the outcome of the assault could have been much worse. For her quick actions and bravery, the Kerrville Police Department is recognizing Amber Needy with the Meritorious Acts by a Citizen Award for her bravery and heroism during this incident. Thank you very much. Great job.
Thank you.
Cody, you can come up. Here's Cody. Almost got there. Officers responded to a disturbance at the Subway restaurant located at 207 Sidney Baker South. When officers responded, they observed Cody Lane Hennig, who had a license to carry a firearm in the state of Texas, standing near the front window of the store, pointing a gun at who was later identified as a suspect who was wielding a large hunting knife. A victim with multiple stab wounds was also located sitting on the floor nearby. During the incident leading up to officers being dispatched, witnesses stated the stabbing victim and the suspect had gotten into a verbal argument while standing in line, which turned physical. Cody attempted to stop the fight, and when he observed the suspect to have a large hunting knife with which he began to stab the victim. Cody ran to his vehicle and retrieved his handgun. He then returned into the restaurant and pointed his handgun at the suspect. These actions stopped the suspect from further assaulting the victim. Due to the intense and volatile situation, Mr. Landhennig observed the victim needed medical help and removed his belt and tossed it to the victim to utilize as a tourniquet on his leg. Mr. Lang had quick thinking and lack of hesitation to intervene while also putting his own life in danger, prevented further injury, and likely saved the life of the victim. The Kerrville Police Department would like to recognize the bravery and heroism shown on this day by Cody Lanehennig by presenting him with the Citizens Meritorious Acts Award for bravery and selfless actions during this incident. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
One more word. Cody's wife, Jordan, is here. And Jordan, I know this must have been scary, but his bravery is really something. I know you're proud of him. All right, good. Thank you. Okay. Okay. We have now a TERS annual report, and if you will share that with us, Ms. Dozier.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. What amazing stories we just heard. I'd like to present a little bit of information to y'all tonight. The TERS board met on January 28th and had their annual report, and so I want to share that same information with the council as well. All right, a little bit of background. So TERS, you'll remember, is a financing tool that's governed by state law. It's called tax increment financing, and it helps finance public improvement projects within a certain zone. And incremental property tax collections are used within a zone. So for example, I live near Starkey Elementary School and I pay property taxes. My property taxes could be used entirely to repave Singing Winds on the other side of town, and that would be fine. If I lived within a TERS, a portion of my property taxes would have to be used in the neighborhood around my property rather than anywhere within the city. So that's the basic idea. The city has one TERS. It's called TERS number 1, and it was established in 2018. About 477 acres is included in the TERS, 580 properties, and it's designed to encourage investment in downtown Kerrville. You'll see a map here. I've also put a hard copy of the TERS report at your places because it's a little hard to see on the screen. But anyway, you can see a map here with the boundaries in the downtown area. And just to give you a little bit of background on what the actual increment is, it actually boils down to a very simple calculation that is just actual taxes collected in the current year minus actual taxes collected in a base year. So the first year of the TERS is the base year, and then we just look at how property taxes increase from the base year to the current year, and whatever that increment is what goes into the TERS. A couple of considerations for y'all. So the comptroller and a lot of things you read through the state really focus on property values and increased property values in the TERS, and that creating the increment. And certainly that can, and property values in the Kerrville TERS number 1 have increased from 97 million in 2018 to 115 million in this current tax year. So that's a big deal, but we're looking at actual property taxes collected. So it's important to remember that tax rate also plays a factor. So the city's tax rate has decreased in 3 of the last 4 years. So if the property tax values are going up, but the rate is going down, that can lead to equal collections rather than increased collections. Also, the collection rate is important. Right now, or for fiscal year 2020 that we're reporting on, the TERS had a collection rate of 98.8%, which is extremely high. But when things happen like economic downturns, that if those impact the collection rates, that's going to impact the amount of taxes collected and the amount of increment going into the TERS. And then another thing that Kerrville has that's unique is frozen property, or the tax ceiling that we have in place for property owners 65 plus or disabled. There's not a lot of that in our TERS, but it is important to remember that that would also impact the amount of increment that goes into a TERS. And this is a page taken from our budget book. You can see that, so 2020 was the first year of tax collections for the TERS, and the TERS collected almost $23,000 in property taxes, and the TERS had no expenditures, and there's no debt paid through this TERS, anything like that. So there's an ending fund balance of that almost $23,000. Next year, the current year that we're in, fiscal year 2021, we're expecting another another $49,000 in tax collections. So we're expecting more in that increment than in 2020. And as of right now, there are no budgeted expenditures, so that would get added to the $23,000 from the previous year, leaving an ending balance of $72,000 at the end of 2021. And then these next couple of pages are just the prescribed annual report that the Texas Comptroller gives us a format that we have to follow. And it's obviously hard to read on the screen, but you have your hard copy there. But it's the same kind of information, just in their prescribed report format. And that's all I have. Are there any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Do you have a targeted goal of how much you want in there? And do you have a specific project in mind for the use of that money?
So the amount of, money going in there really it's budgeted by the actual property tax roll and the levy that we get from the appraisal district. So there's not a way to say, okay, well, we want $100,000 in there this year. It's all dependent on, what the property tax valuations and the property tax rate is set at, and those considerations that we just looked at. And then the TERS has its own board, and so the board is the one that decides, what projects should be used and how money should be spent. There was an initial plan filed when the TERS was created, but Mr. McDaniel, do you have anything to add on those questions?
At this point, there are no specific projects scheduled for construction or even consideration. As Amy said, the plan did include kind of categories of different kinds of projects that there might be, just very broadly, because nobody really knew what might be coming our way. And so as far as a target in terms of funding, the plan did include what we might collect as a projection over a 30-year period, assuming certain assumptions related to growth and types of development. But all that's got to really kind of play out, and it's very early to tell what that number is going to be. But there is a projection. I believe it's something in the neighborhood of $30 million or something like that.
Okay, but the purpose of the money that's in this pot is to benefit everybody within the TERS and not specific. I mean, are businesses applying for this money, or is this money going to benefit everybody that's within that 477 acres, like for infrastructure?
Right. So there's no process for an individual business to make application.
Okay.
I guess they could write a letter and ask for something, but the board hasn't considered any requests and hasn't indicated that they would entertain any at this point.
Okay.
And as far as benefiting the zone, it has to benefit the zone, even if it's an individual project. The law does allow for the board to grant to an individual project, like let's say a business wants to redo its parking lot. They could do that as a 380 grant or a TERS grant. But from everything that I've heard from at least the current board and some of the council members, is that the intention is to benefit the entire zone, more specifically not an individual business, maybe in the way of a public improvement, whether that's parking or streetscaping, landscaping, signal upgrades, those kinds of things. Okay. But the rest of the council may have other thoughts.
So good questions, Brenda. So is the, remind me please, the way that we have set the TERS board, they will approve projects and then council will have final approval over those projects, or TERS has complete authority over the use of those funds?
We haven't even thought about using them, so I haven't really thought that through.
Right.
I would expect that you all would have a hand in that at some point.
Definitely, council does see the TERS budget, so it is part of the budget book and the budget process each year. Of course, budgets can be amended, and that would come back to council to be amended.
Well, would it be similar to, well, I know it's not a separate entity, but it would be similar to the way that EIC approves their projects, and then council approves EIC projects after they have been considered?
I don't know if it would follow exactly that same procedure or not.
It would be similar. It may not be exact.
I would look at it as, like some of the things that Mark mentioned, as landscaping that would be all over downtown, or maybe it would be, if some of the streets went to one way, maybe it would be for new striping or
Right.
working those things out. But it would, I don't see it going to individual businesses. That has never been my perception of it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, if we decided that that area needed a trolley system,
Yes.
okay, then I could support TERS money paying for that trolley system that took tourists or residents or, you know, people throughout that district. But I just wanted to clarify that this wasn't one of these, you know, businesses apply for the money
No.
and are
No.
selected.
I mean, I don't think that it's ever been, that's never been at least in my book, it's never been a
Okay.
consideration.
Okay.
The only
And-
exception to that would be what I call a project-specific grant, so that, let's just say you have a $30 million hotel that wants to come in, or an office building, and to build that, they want an incentive from the TERS, and they basically want a rebate of their taxes paid into the TERS. That is common as a
Okay.
project-specific, but it'd have to be pretty significant in terms of, and it'd be a development agreement that you all would end up weighing in on as well.
Okay, thank you.
And I look at it, this is a long-term savings account that we may never see the benefit of
Right.
it, but
Right.
our kids and grandkids very well may.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Right. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, sir, we do have one. George Baruti.
George Birdie, 1616 Glen Road. So in answer to one of the questions, it's not exactly like EIC, but it's my understanding that you actually do have final approval on any of their projects. You don't have preliminary approval, but you will have final approval. And just a history lesson, yeah, when it was presented originally, it talked about, it doesn't preclude spending on individual projects. The term facade upgrades, things like that were actually thrown about. It doesn't mean you have to do them, but they are available to both the TERS board and council when they go to vote on them. That's not why it came up. So after a couple years in being in operation, at least three separate bylaw changes pertaining to board membership, has the city finally created an application process that is available to the public? And I got the answer, I guess that the answer is no. I'm aware of 2 potential applicants that have been told previously that no available applications existed. This is somewhat problematic since the funding for the TERS projects is essentially on a first-come, first-served basis. And these previous applicants will have lost their place in line. So, I would encourage you to at least create the application process. You can turn down every single applicant that comes in, but you should be allowing everybody to step up and present their project. Secondly, when the TERS was first created, the public was led to believe that the increment method being used would be based on the assessed value increment within the zone. However, it appears that the city is utilizing the levied and collected method rather than the levied and assessed method for calculating the increment. No problem, but what was the reasoning behind determining this, if there was any? And has it been changed by council since the original creation document? And if so, when? And that's all. Thanks.
Any other speakers?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. No action is required on that. And would you read in 2D?
City's ongoing preparedness and response to COVID-19 coronavirus.
Okay, Chief Maloney will present this.
Good evening. So, Mayor, Council, citizens. Well, I stood before you 2 weeks ago and said I wanted to come back here at the next council meeting and bring you some good news of vaccines, and I do get to bring that, and I'll bring some other positive news for the community. So the current count that we have, this is the latest that we received, is that we're at 186 active cases. That is the lowest since November 19th. So very positive in regards to that downward trend. Now remember, beginning of November, we were also at 72. The deaths are at 79, 3,300 recovered, and the other piece is that there are 5 hospitalized as of the 9th, and that is also the lowest since October 28th. The hospitalization, remember, is very important for our community, and that is Peterson in our healthcare system, so we do monitor that very closely. That has been as high as 34. The next slide kind of shows a little bit of that trend for January, how we started off at 255, peaked all the way about mid-January at 498, so right 14 days after the new year, and gradually came back down to 186 in February 9th. So very good news there, and the bottom line is the hospitalizations, and you can see it was peaked at 34 and stayed very high through the majority of January, and then back down to 5 as of the 9th. We're seeing that across the region in the Bexar County too. That is another positive with those from El Paso being transported back. So we're seeing a lot of the downward trends in the hospitalizations. Local update, the public COVID testing, the Hill Country Youth Exhibit Center, that was last week. We conducted 881 tests out there. Those were PCR tests and free to the public. That is a positive overall in regards to that takes the pressure off the healthcare system, Peterson, and any other agencies that are doing tests in town and providing that. Next week, available to the public is Lady Bird Park at Pioneer Pavilion. That is Monday the 15th through Friday the 19th, 8 to 4. Drive-through only, no appointment necessary. And then we're working on another one here for our community, but we don't have anything kind of a set date at this time. Meetings and collaboration. So we've been doing a lot of meetings, a lot of the kind of discussion on the back end on what we need to do as a community. We had our community leadership meeting on Thursday the 4th. That is with the ISDs, the city, the county, Peterson. Very productive meeting getting together as a community. Our next meeting is Thursday, February 18th. The vaccine task force has been real busy. We met last Wednesday the 3rd, and that was really in preparation for our community vaccine clinic, which I'll talk about in a second. And our next meeting we're having for the task force is this Friday when we find out the next allocations from the state. The vaccine planning meeting also kind of came to fruition. That was on Tuesday the 9th. That was today, and next meeting to be determined. This one's kind of talking a little more about the overall picture, not just the community clinic, in regards to the call center, in regards to the pre-registration, other opportunities that we need to move forward with. The vaccine update. So last week, we're in week 9 now. Last week, as of February 1st, the good news is we received, Peterson received 300 doses. They had a clinic on Wednesday the 3rd that focused specifically on Tier 1A, that is the healthcare workers. And that was last Wednesday. On Thursday, we had our first community clinic, and it went very smooth. It was exactly as we anticipated from doing the flu clinic since 2011, went just as we expected, actually with really no significant changes moving forward in that clinic. So we were able to put 400 doses out in the community last Thursday. So we were getting some of the vaccinations to our the Tier 1B, the 65 plus, for those individuals that fell in that tier. Another 500 doses were given between Walgreens and Walmart pharmacies. They're doing in-store vaccinations, and they're still doing the vaccination process. Today, I believe Walgreens was finishing up today with their 200 doses, and Walmart, I believe they'll finish up a little later in the week for theirs. So we received 1,200 overall, and so that was really positive for our community moving into week 9, February 8th. So this week, there will be 500 doses transferred to Peterson Regional Medical Center, and then we are working on the community clinic again, planned for next week. So we'll give more information on what day that's going to be as we get a little closer to receiving the vaccines and the process for that. HEB Pharmacy also received 300 doses, so HEB is now receiving their doses under the CDC, under the federal contract, and so they will be providing those vaccines in store. If it becomes too much for the store, then obviously we have the ability to move off-site and be able to do that same community clinic that we did last week, which was HEB, and we can do it again for them in Peterson. We could do it multiple days or even split them between the day. So the update, Last week, when we did the 300 at Peterson, we are very confident that we have taken care of the Phase 1A tier for the healthcare workers, that the majority of the healthcare workers in Kerr County have either received a vaccine through us or through another means that they were able to achieve that. So we feel pretty comfortable with that. We put it out there. Now, there'll still be an opportunity for them there are a few that still need that under the Phase 1A, the healthcare workers, and we'll work through that. But we feel pretty comfortable with that, us in Peterson. So now the focus is going to be on the Phase 1B tier, that high-risk and frontline workers. So according to the Department of State Health Services, there are 14,000 residents in Kerr County that are over 65. There are an additional 14,000 residents between 16 and 64 with any medical condition. So looking at both of those, and there are more to that 1B tier, but that is 28,000 people that we have to really focus on this 1B. Doesn't mean they all haven't received the vaccine. They did. There are other opportunities in our community and or in the surrounding communities. So the good news is also they're working on a pre-registration process for the Peterson allocations. So Peterson is now going to be working toward creating a waiting list. You will see more information on that in the coming week and this week as far as what that process looks like. And that will provide our citizens an opportunity to sign up as a waiting list for pre-registration, not scheduling a date that you're going to come in for the vaccine because it's still based on allocation, but it does allow you to get on a waiting list that will be sorted by the tiers. So if you get on that list and you were the Tier 1A healthcare worker that somehow missed and you didn't get it, now you will be our priority. So, and we will get you in that clinic when it does become available for that. So the call center we're working toward, that's going to be staffed by city employees, more collaborative effort that we're going to help work on that, and we're working on that, starting some training. We got some training coming up this week, so we're real excited about that. A lot of departments are pitching in order to help staff that. Very similar to what we did back in probably about a year ago or 10 months ago with the Joint Operations Center when we had individuals from the city also helping with that call center. So this, what they're working on here through the Peterson allocations and Peterson Health is strictly for pre-registration for a waiting list. There is still the Kerr County Call Center for frequently asked questions, and that is still going to be available, and that will still be a primary point of contact any other questions that any city residents may have. And then, of course, the Department of State Health Services, I shared this on the community meeting that we had last week. They have some great information out there at dshs.texas.gov under the coronavirus. So they give a lot of information on where to get vaccinated. They give a list of hubs, all the vaccine providers across Texas, contact information. They have interactive maps. They have good education information from the CDC and FDA, and a lot of FAQs also. So they really kind of ramp up their website and provide that information for those that are looking for a little more on where to get the vaccine or education about it. And then, as always, COVID-19 is still a public health threat. So I bring good news as far as the numbers moving down in the direction we want to see in the hospitalization, but it has not changed out there in the community at that point. So we have to continue to remain vigilant. Don't be complacent by the numbers. Wear the mask, reduce the spread of the virus, and continue the social distancing. I'll take any questions at this time. Thank you.
Council, do you have any questions?
Chief, can I ask about the wait list that you're referring to?
Okay.
So if someone is not a Tier 1A or 1B, are they being waitlisted as well and just kind of weighted into whatever category they fall into? I mean, so we're talking educators or whoever else may want the vaccine, or is the recommendation for only, if I'm going to go and talk to someone in the community and they're going to ask me, what should I do? Would I tell them that primarily only Tier 1A and 1B are being waitlisted right now?
Correct.
And it's not generally open to the public just yet?
Correct. So those individuals that are in the 1A or the 1B are what is going to be the primary focus. And that's the focus on the state coming from Dr. Hellerstadt,
Sure.
DSHS, and that's what we want to focus on, and Peterson does too. So others may, it's
Sure.
going to be a little farther as far as the
Sure.
1C on what that rollout looks like.
All right.
But educators are 1B, right?
Yes, sir.
So
That's
educators
what I
do
was
fall in.
going
I
to
thought they did. I just didn't see that on the list. Okay. All right. So educators are also in the 1B category.
Correct. So the 1B is really to reduce the focus is to reduce the mortality and those with the comorbidities, and that is the focus of it. But they also talk about the EVAP when they came out with this, and that it was those to focus on the Texas economy, focus on those teachers that are educating our children, and so they're also linked into that 1B, although
Okay.
maybe not specifically tiered, but it is in a paragraph in there. to
Okay,
talk
so if
about.
someone calls in and says, I'm an educator, they would be put into the 1B group as far as the wait list.
Correct, and there'll be an option for them on there that it will tier them into that educator, or it will choose them
So
on the
they'll
list
be
there.
directed to the website and the portal rather than a phone sign up.
Yeah, so the great thing with this is that we're going to have both options. So we're going to have the online ability for those that are able to register online, and some are very proficient at that. I've tried to register, and people are quick. But it also allows those to have a call number, so that if I can't get online, or I don't have that ability, or it's going to take me too difficult, I can call in. So call into us, we'll help you through it, and we'll get you registered on there. And when it does become available for you, you will get notified the same way you got registered. So if it was a number that you called in from, you'll get the call back for that. But the callback still depends on allocations, and I think that's the important thing to remember. But it does get us on a list. It does get us where, when the allocations start moving, and it will, it's going to tip. It's a supply demand, and then we will have more opportunities for that. It's very exciting.
But Chief, the vaccines that go to CVS, Walgreens, are they not being allocated to the different tiers?
So they are by tiers. So the corporate does determine, the corporate for those, Walgreens, Walmart, CVS, and HEB determines what that tier is. That is tier 1B. There's not a tier 1C on there. But that is their registration process for that when you sign up for that. They could have teachers on there, and then some may not. So that is a corporate decision for them to make.
But our teachers they're going to be at the top.
They're in with the tier 1Bs, correct.
1B.
So they're in with the 65 plus, the 16 to 64 with the comorbidities. So those protecting the Texas economy and teaching our children in there. And so that was in a list presented by DSHS on the tier 1A and tier 1B explanation or the definitions, I'm sorry.
Chief, do you know what the cost is for this vaccine for people who are uninsured?
Great question. So there is no cost. So
No cost.
there is no cost for that. So if you are uninsured, so we want to get you vaccinated, so sign up accordingly to your tier. So if you were in that tier 1B, 65 plus, and don't have insurance, sign up. So do the call center when it does become available. So there is no cost. Now, if you have insurance, so we ask that you file insurance. We will hold the insurance accountable, the federal government too, for that, and they will pay, but there is no cost to the individual, even if you have insurance.
Okay.
But if someone wants to register through Peterson, that can be done.
So through the call center it will be through the call center that we will be staffed and monitoring on
Okay,
that.
but
So
not
Monday-
online.
No,
That's
both.
strictly
Both,
both.
Both.
Okay,
preferably online.
okay. And where would they go online in order
That,
to?
that will be released in the next probably 24 hours.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, that's not out there yet. Okay, all right, thank you.
Chief, I want to compliment you and others in the vaccination clinic at First Methodist Church. It was very well done, and I had several of the Shriner nursing students talk about how orderly it was, how helpful it was, and that was a real win. The other thing I want to say that I want to compliment you and the vaccine task force in looking at ways to make this smoother, that more people are served and that kind of thing. That's great.
Thank you. It's very important to us. This is the community that we serve, and we take this very seriously. And as far as trying to get this done and get this done in the most efficient way that we possibly can. And the clinic itself, it went great. People were so kind. There was not an issue there. Law enforcement was there. We always appreciate their support, but really it went very well. Good collaborative effort from all community partners there.
Yeah, good. Council, anything else?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Do we have any speakers signed up?
We did not have any visitor
All
or
right,
citizen signed up.
Okay. Visitors Citizens Forum. Do we have anyone signed up for the forum?
No, sir, no one signed up for the forum.
Okay. Now let's move to the consent agenda. Council, do you desire to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Mayor, I'll make a
No, sir.
motion that we
No, I would
approve the
like to.
consent
We-
agenda.
Just that.
We do have a citizen that wishes to pull an item.
Okay, all right.
item-
Council, just a second. You have anything to pull? No. All right, okay. Let's hear from one speaker, then we'll come back to this.
George Baruti.
George Baruti, 1616 Glen Road. The item is actually 4C, the council meeting minutes from last meeting. So midway down on page 3 of the minutes, there's a curious omission from the record which should be corrected. This is regarding item 7A, the second reading of ordinance 2021-01, which covered the annexation of the city-owned property on Loop 534. Upon review of the video, the minutes should have read, Councilmember Clarkson made a motion to approve ordinance 2021-02 on second reading. However, the minutes clearly have been edited to remove the actual ordinance number, which had been stated in the motion. 2 days following the meeting, council was made aware of the inadvertent mistake made on the motion, which left item 7A still unresolved. This was obviously an honest mistake with a simple solution, namely replace the item on the next available meeting, which could have been tonight. Unfortunately, the city had chose instead, rather than fixing the problem, to try and cover this up by revising history in the minutes. Section 551.021 of the Government Code says the minutes must state the subject of each deliberation and indicate each vote, order, decision, or other action. If this was really no big deal, then why go to the trouble of cleansing the minutes and creating a false record of the meeting? You can read for yourself the motions for items 7A, 7B, and 7C, and you can see that 7A is the only one that has been modified from the actual record of the meeting. Someone might say the intent of the original motion was clear. However, that cannot be further from the truth, especially because the mistake in ordinance 2021-02 was to be discussed on the very next agenda item 7B. Furthermore, no action can be taken without the explicit motion and majority vote from council. And in this case, there has clearly been none. So big picture. It might seem like a small thing to have said the wrong number, and under normal circumstances it would. So why not just assume the council member meant to say a different number? Well, what if the mistake was to accidentally say reject rather than approve? Would we be so quick to assume we knew intent? If the words of the motion don't really matter anyways, then let's just dispense with motions altogether and votes on action and simply task staff with interpreting the intent of council from their discussions. I would request that you consider fixing the minutes and to restore the integrity of this body and proceedings. Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Mr. Hayes, City Attorney?
Well, and the speaker sent us an email or sent council an email after the meeting with his argument, and I looked at it, and I think it was very clear as to certainly the intent. As the speaker said, it was an inadvertent mistake. The city secretary read out the correct ordinance number. It was on the screen behind you correctly. It was just a misstatement, and again, I think it was the intent was clear, and it was a second reading, and I'm comfortable that your action was valid and authoritative, and I think we don't need to do anything else with respect to this matter.
All right, okay. So, does that resolve it?
Yes.
Okay, okay. All right. Okay, council, do you desire to pull any of the consent agendas?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
And
Okay.
I'll second it.
Motion second for the consent agenda. All right. All in favor, let it be known by the raised hand. Okay, consent
And,
agenda is passed.
Mr. Mayor, I would also like to say I have been asked on behalf of the Doyle School Community Center, thank you for waiving those fees.
Okay.
Very, very appreciative.
Yeah, all right, all right. Okay. Now, ordinances, second reading, 5A.
Ordinance number 2021-08, second reading. An ordinance amending Chapter 66 Library of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Kerrville, Texas by amending Article 2 Library Advisory Board to increase the composition of the membership of the Library Advisory Board to 6 members, such that City Council will make 4 appointments containing a cumulative clause, containing a savings and severability clause, and providing other matters relating to the subject.
All right. Okay.
And there are no speakers signed up.
I'm sorry.
There are no speakers signed up.
No speakers. All right. Okay. There's no second reading, so no staff presentation. Council, any questions?
No. I just want to add that even though it does give an even number, that it satisfies putting people on, and the library is very, they approve this.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve ordinance number 2021-08 on second reading.
All right.
I second that.
Okay, we've got a motion second. All in favor, if you let me know by the raised hand, and it passes unanimously. Would you read in 6A, please?
Resolution number 11-2021, a resolution supporting the application of OPG Holdsworth Partners LLC to construct affordable rental housing pursuant to the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program administered by the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. And there are no speakers.
I'm sorry?
There are no speakers signed up.
Okay, all right. Okay, Mr. Hoppy, would you present it?
Mayor and Council, we've got Mr. Matt Gillum of OPG Partners that's going to further brief the City Council. As you may recall, OPG came before the Council about a year ago and presented a resolution of support for a project off Lehman Drive. We're also going to get a status report on that project tonight. But there's a lengthy process as these go through the TDHC approval process. Essentially, it's a 9% credit program that helps make these affordable and workforce housing projects work in the state of Texas, and creates a partnership both between the state and the federal government with private entities to help bring workforce housing to communities like ourselves. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Gillum to further brief the City Council.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for having me this evening. My name is Matt Gillum. I am one of the managing partners of Overland Property Group. We're a real estate development firm that specializes in affordable housing. We've been around for the last roughly 20 years now, believe it or not. Every time I say it, it's surprising. But since then, we've developed roughly 55 different individual communities across the United States, including around 20 in Texas. You know, as you will remember, this is a specialty for us. Affordable housing is something we not only specialize in, we're passionate about. You know, I do the high-end senior living as well, but, you know, that doesn't really drive us. And Nate and April here tonight as well went to grand opening Friday evening in Canyon Lake and got to see the residents moving in there and got to hear from them and the way their lives have been changed by moving into an affordable senior living community that is quality and is one that they'll be able to enjoy. So I'm kind of flipping through here. You've heard this spiel last year, and I won't bore you with the details, but you know, as I always say, talk is cheap. And what I can tell you is, if you look at the pictures, this is the product of our work. This is all affordable housing, every single picture you see up there. So Steamboat Springs, Colorado, 48 units of affordable multifamily. This is over in Holdsworth, which is just a little south of Lubbock. The Reserve of the Preston Trails, again, affordable housing. Here's the interior of the clubhouse of that community. Exterior. This is also this is Lubbock, just right next door, the Reserve South Plains, as you can kind of see. Interior of the clubhouses, and then again, another new community in Steamboat Springs. So 55 different communities across the Midwest, and these are all affordable housing financed through the same program. This is one near and dear to our hearts because this is our hometown of Salina, Kansas. This is a historic rehab. This is actually where Lee Jeans got their start. Again, financed through the same program I'm talking to you about tonight. Again, more communities and good-looking product. Specifically, the reserves at Holdsworth, which I'll get to in a second. I wanted to give you an update on the residents at Ridge Hill, which is the community I was in front of you for last year. We went through the process, and in July, we got the good news that we were funded by the state of Texas and Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs for federal low-income housing tax credits. Since then, we've been working with investors and lenders, architects, engineers to go throughout that process and get that community to a place where it is ready to close and start construction. So we are at the current stage of finalizing the last budgets with investors and lenders. Our architecture and engineering teams are working right now on the final plans that we will submit to the city for permitting. So we are probably about 2 to 3 months away from breaking ground and starting construction there. Once that process happens, will be roughly a 12-month construction schedule. And then at that point in time, the residents will move in 12 months after that. So, you know, from today's date, you're looking at roughly 15 months until the first resident moves into the community. The program itself is a very well done program. It was started in 1986 under the Reagan administration, partnering public and private. And for all of the great things it has a lot of hoops to jump through. It has a lot of regulatory agencies that I have to get approval from. So that process doesn't, you know, happen overnight. It takes a lot of time. But the good news is we're there at the finish line. So the reserves at Holdsworth, which I have up there on your screen, you can see the outline of that property there. This, unlike the community I spoke to you about last year, this particular community is multifamily. So we really, as we were doing a survey of the entire Kerrville community, what we noticed was there wasn't just the demand for senior, but there was also multifamily. And so this year when we were analyzing the scoring, we also noticed that you know, Kerrville would score again, and we saw an opportunity to provide this housing for not just seniors but multifamily. One thing I will kind of mention that's funny is even when we do build multifamily, it's typically 35% of the residents are seniors anyway. So at this community, like the senior community, we have a lot of different amenities, including the design and the quality construction that I spoke to you about last year. So roughly 35% of the exterior is stone and masonry product, and the remainder is a cementatious hardy board. So, you know, quality from top to bottom, including lifetime shingles, etc. One particular part of this program that's interesting is I'm required to own this property for 35 years at a minimum. So where the benefit is for us is to hold these and maintain them, build them at a very, very high level so that 35 years there's something of high quality for us to continue to own. So the rental level is fixed for a 35-year period of time. So these affordable rents, you can see there's 2 units at 30% of the area median income, which in this case is roughly $278 to $369. But the bulk of the units start at roughly $516 for 1 bedroom, $699 for a 2-bedroom at the 50% AMI, and go all the way up to $863. And then on the market rate side of that, these rents get all the way up to roughly $1,200. So there is a nice mix all the way from 30 to 60% AMI on the affordable side, and then roughly 15 units of 15 units of market rate, which means anybody can live there regardless of their income. This is not a sliding scale, so this is not subsidized. Based on how much you make, you have to have a job, you have to qualify just like you would in other apartments. But just like how long it takes me to close these, this is not an overnight application process. It's roughly about 5 days to get qualified to live there after background checks, credit checks, employment checks, etc. So these are just a few renderings of the interior pictures of these communities. Again, very high quality designs. Being the son of an architect, I take a lot of pride in our construction and a lot of the detail that goes into it. Site amenities, again, with the Clubhouse itself, a lot of detail and time is taken into making sure those site amenities are at the highest quality and they're what the residents will use. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have tonight, whether it be about the Holdsworth community or any of the updates on Ridge Hill or about ourselves as a company.
I have a question. Are your properties pet friendly?
So these two, I have to be careful when I talk about this because I lost my pet as a family member a few weeks ago, so it's still fresh for me. But as a company, I don't know how you can not be pet friendly, and as every single person in our company has an animal, how can you expect somebody to move into your community and leave their family member behind? So every single one of our communities is pet friendly, and it's something that's a little passionate for us.
You don't know how important that question is to her. So you did good. Other questions?
I just have a quick question. So I know it's a very competitive process, and we've got a large region that we're competing in as far as your project. You obviously felt like that Kerrville would be competitive in this round. Can you elaborate on why?
Sure, absolutely. So we go through a very detailed process of analyzing that scoring, and we've got some really, really good consultants that help us with that, and specifically to the process in Texas. We put the application in believing it would be a very high score. The pre-applications came out, which means the state gets these applications in and they put them in a spreadsheet and say, these are the ones we received. These are the self-scores, meaning they expect all the developers to tell the truth and say what score that they think they'll get. But then you can go through theirs and figure out where you really think they'll score. And we are the high score, meaning if we carry through with what we need to, which we will, like we did last year, we will be the funding, we'll be the group funded, which means you will beat out all of the other applications in this region, and the federal dollars will flow here to this community and not any others. So right now we are in first place, and it's not even a tie, and we're a few points up on everybody else.
And the contribution from the city is what, $250?
$250. Although I'll take the $250,000 that was printed. No, in reality, it's $250.
Okay.
Do you get more points for more incentive?
We do not get more points for more incentive. TDHCA used to actually ask for higher contribution from cities, but there was quite a bit of interaction that was given to them that a lot of developers felt and a lot of cities felt was putting undue burden on certain communities. And so it's really a small level and really a sign of support that, they're willing to put a small amount of money behind it. That's a challenging property. I was on the phone for about an hour and a half as we were driving over here with our construction teams talking about that. So it'll be interesting, but no, there's no more points for additional funding.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have questions?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to be optimistic and look forward to when the funding has been put in place and you have won this bid. What does it look like for the people that would want to apply for this project?
Sure.
Because I think that the need is certainly there, as you say. I think we all know that. So can you just kind of give us just a real brief overview of what that looks like?
Sure. We have a lot of experience with high demand. So Steamboat Springs, Colorado, our first community is 48 units. We told everyone, please do not line up at 3 in the morning. Don't stand out in the cold. They lined up at 3 in the morning anyway, and there was roughly 400 people applied for those 48 units. Next couple years, we built a 72-unit property. Same thing, 400 people applied. So what we try to do is talk with the community about that months in advance, but then the window of applications really needs to be within 90 days of us opening and having a certificate of occupancy, because we're regulated by the IRS program, and so we have to provide documentation to them, and that documentation cannot be more than 90 days removed from it. So the actual applications will start being taken 90 days from us opening the door. And our hope being is to have residents ready, qualified, so that the day that they can move in, they are able to move in. So, the community will start hearing from us probably 5 to 6 months before the doors open, and then with applications started being taken 90 days out.
And then my next question was just about when you say that you determine the need, we know the need is here as well. So as an outside group that's not local to our community, how do you determine that our community has that need? And what does that look like to an investor outside of our community?
Sure. It's something that I can't point to in a chart. I say, development is somewhat of a gut business. There's demand somewhere, and so you react on a gut. That is how we, honestly found your community, is talking to people in the area and being told time and time again. A developer who develops natural grocers is a good friend of mine from Denver, and he's told me time and time again about the demand in Kerrville, demand in this area down here. We were working in Canyon Lake. We built two senior communities there. And, when I started examining other communities to go into, there's obviously a point system to this with funding, but there's also the demand side. And I had said to EA earlier, we were sold on the community the first time we came in. This is a large investment for us. And so, I'm personally guaranteeing these, but that gut kind of feeling, talking to other people, I saw it when we came here. But then obviously we, pull third-party reports and spend substantial amounts of money to do that. So, it's really kind of a holistic approach on figuring out where that demand is and then how you're going to really react to, how you feel, what you've seen, and what you've heard from other people, and then obviously the reports as well. So those reports, if a report comes back and it says there's no demand, I'm kind of go, wow, I must be losing it. But, really you just kind of know, talking with folks, as you all do day to day, you hear that when you go to a restaurant and someone says, man, I'm just having a hard time finding affordable housing or finding somewhere to live here. I want to live here. So.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. If you are taking an application 90 days out, or beginning to, are you starting then with the Ridge Hill?
Yes.
You are starting?
Yes. Yes, so Ridge Hill will start under construction here in the next 2 to 3 months. If we receive funding on this community, I would like to think January of next year is when we would start construction. But based on the fact that we'll have to apply for a couple different soft sources of funds on this as well, and we'll be awarded those, I think it's probably more realistically February. We would start construction there and then be 12 months out from opening on that one.
Okay. And that one, Ridge Hill, is strictly senior citizens?
Correct. That's correct.
With both of these, HOA fees? None?
No.
HOA regs? Any things?
We, being the landlord and the property owner, we set the rules of the property. We do have resident councils. We like the interaction with the residents. We want them to have the feeling of ownership, even though they are renting. So we do have these resident councils, but we also have investors and lenders. And I'm sorry, I forgot to answer that portion of your question. I'll kind of answer it here in tandem. Everybody from Wells Fargo on down to JP Morgan Chase is interested in investing in these. We've got 8 different investors that were interested in investing in Ridge Hill, if that tells you anything. So they believe there is a demand here. They're doing it for the better good. They're doing it for Community Reinvestment Act requirements. So they're making a very minimal return, roughly probably 2%, but they are investing and they're lined up to do it. And so specifically with these properties, not only do we maintain them and operate them to our standards, but we also have standards that are required by the investors when it comes to rules, regulations, others. For instance, cannot have a felony and apply and be accepted into these communities. That is a federal requirement. That's not something I can get around even, not that I'd want to. But the rules that the properties themselves are typically set by us. There's not an HOA that can change these without our approval.
You also said, and I may have misunderstood, you can qualify them in 5 days?
So when I say qualify, I mean if you were to rent an apartment, you could go out and get the application, fill that application out, give them all of the requirements that they have, which typically for just a standard community would be employment verification, income verification. They would probably do a quick background check, but not too deep into it. And you could actually move in the same day. That's most apartment complexes. That's how they work. With us, because of the level of verification we have to go down to, when they audit files, the IRS can come in and they will ask us specifically for these types of pieces of proof. So we have to make sure our files are very impeccable. So that process doesn't happen overnight. Those files are not just approved by the resident manager at the property, but also the district manager, the investor, and the lender. And then the state will come in and audit once a year. So that process of documentation can't happen in a day, and it's roughly 5 days at a minimum.
Okay. You guys own the land already?
We do not own the land at Holdsworth. We did buy the land at Ridge Hill, so even though we haven't closed on that with the lender investor, we did purchase that property and own that property at this time.
Yeah, I noticed that this resolution that we're considering tonight needs to be into Austin March 1. So you recommend we move ahead?
Yes. Yes. I spent a little bit of money today, we'll put it that way, to get us here. So we've done a lot of legwork behind the scenes, getting that application ready to go in March 1st, and we've been doing that ever since, I'd say, October.
And I'm impressed. He came all the way from Kansas City to talk to us tonight. So
That's good. I have one last question, if I may. Did I misunderstand? Did you say these prices would be fixed for 35 years?
Yes. So you can have and apply for an increase in it, but it only matches the area median income, which is set by HUD.
Okay.
So if your area median income would go up with cost of living, those would be adjusted. They have a gross max rent, and then I have to subtract out the utility allowance, so roughly what the tenants would pay for their utilities, and then that's how you get the maximum allowable rent. So I'm sorry, I'm a little misleading, but yes, the AMI brackets cannot change. So if I say I'm going to charge, I've got 8 units or 50% of the area median income, I can't change that mix.
Okay, that's good. Literally,
Any other questions from the
35 years
council?
was too good to be true.
Okay. Do we have any speakers?
No, sir.
All right. Okay. You ready to move forward?
I'll make a motion that we move to approve resolution number 11-2021 as drafted.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, let it be known by the upraised hand. All right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, 6B has been pulled. So let's look at 6C. Ms. McLennan.
Agenda, distribution timeframes, and city council regular meeting date and time.
Okay. So basically, we're talking about staying the same. Any questions, comments?
Yes. In thinking through the reason that I brought this forward, you tell me, is anyone in favor of changing the day to Thursday?
I'm not.
Okay. I would, if that is true, I would still like us to have a way when we are looking at complete rewrites, large documents, to have more time, if not changing the council meeting, but to be given those documents more ahead of a 3-day council meeting window, so that we're not looking at a first reading 3 days after getting a huge document. And I don't know if there needs to be, Mr. Hayes, a motion to that effect, if we need to establish that criteria, or if it's just a general consensus item, or if any of you feel completely differently about that and think that we should just go ahead and move forward. You know, I was talking to Mr. McDaniel, and I am not going to get through a large document in 3 days. And to approve something on first reading, my feeling is that you're approving it and that you're not going to have any substantive changes at second reading. You may have some little things, but if I have not looked through an entire document and a large item comes up before second reading, then that to me doesn't go with the spirit of 2 readings. So I feel pretty strongly about that part. Now, if we don't want to change the meetings, that's fine, but I still think that we need to consider something when we're dealing with large documents.
On behalf of the staff, I would just say that we can do that, and I'm not sure there really needs to be any formal motions, but if it's a complete rewrite, even if it's a fairly short ordinance, or if it's a brand-new ordinance, then those we will get out to y'all a week in advance.
That would be awesome.
And if we can't, then they're just going to have to be bumped.
Right. So if we don't get it a week in advance, you'll bump it an agenda item. Yeah.
And we'll try to workshop items as well. We haven't been having workshops because of COVID, but eventually, hopefully, we can do that. And so you'll have more time through workshops as well.
Okay.
Or a large contract, that sort of thing. The Comanche Trace contract coming up is a good example of that. It's going to have some details in there you'll want to look at. So we'll do our best. We will get it to you a week in advance if it's a large document or review.
That would be great. I'd support that.
I think, basically, folks, what we're talking about is the amount of time from the time that we get the agenda notebook for Tuesday night city council meeting. And at times it is thick and detailed and everything else. So I concur if there are some of those key documents we can get early by email or whatever. So at least we can go through that. I think that would be positive.
I think that would be helpful.
The only thing that I would say to that is they may not be perfect if they come out that early. There could be some tweaks between that and the final version that goes in your packet. Right. But if it's significant, then we just won't put it on the agenda.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay, do I hear a motion on this matter?
I don't think we need one.
I don't think we need one.
Okay.
We don't need one.
I don't think we need a motion.
All right, my notes say call for a
We can,
motion, but if not, we'll just.
should I make a formal motion, Mr. Hayes?
I don't know how you.
I prefer that you didn't because there may be a time that we didn't quite get it there, and definitions of rewrite may be different. I mean, it just
That's what I'm saying.
Just a general understanding of that.
All right.
I think they'll work with this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, and I think we have the option that if we don't feel like it's satisfying,
you can defer
it. Think it's supposed to be satisfying, then we can
We
come
just
back
say
and
we're
address
not
it.
going to vote on it.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have items for future agendas? Okay. Board appointments, Ms. McLennan?
Library Advisory Board Member.
All right. Okay. What's the word on the library advisory board member?
We'd like to, and I've lost mine. What we would,
Ms. McElhannon, do you have the name?
yes,
Yes. Bev Avery.
yes, we would like to appoint Beth Avery to the library advisory board.
All right. Okay.
Motion?
Yes, that's a motion.
I'll second.
that.
Got a motion, got a second. All in favor, raise the right hand, and it is unanimous. Now, let's move to 8B, the representative of the Playhouse 2000.
Representative of the City of Kerrville for the Playhouse 2000 Board of Directors.
All right.
And, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion that I would like to move that we appoint Brenda Hughes, if she will accept it, as the council's representative to Playhouse 2000 Board of Directors.
Okay. All right. One of our own to go on the Playhouse 2000 board. Do I hear a motion? Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Can I vote or not? Do I vote or not?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
you
you can
vote.
vote. Yeah,
Yes,
you
I'd
can
be
vote.
happy
But
to do
you were
that.
in agreement with this, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, as long as you're in agreement.
I'm in agreement.
Okay. All in favor, let it be known by the raised hand. Okay. Now, City Council, as permitted by law, can adjourn into executive session at any time to discuss any matter listed above if they meet the qualifications in sections 55.071, 551.073, 551.074, and 55.087. So, do I hear a motion of our moving into executive session?
I make a motion that we adjourn under sections 551.071.
All right. Okay.
I second.
Second. All right. All in favor, let it be known by the raised hand. We're in executive session. We will be out probably not for a long time, and then come back and may have a report to you.
And we do have one citizen speaker signed up for 9A whenever you get back.
When we get back, yes.
Yes.
Right. Okay. All right. All right. Is the council, are there any comments or questions before you take public comment, and any motions on item 9A coming out of this executive session?
Okay. I would like to make the motion that the city council directs staff to take all appropriate action to protect its interests, including the interest of neighboring property owners and the airport, with respect to mitigating the impact of the West Texas aggregate operation. I also would like to make a motion that council directs staff to work with the city's legislatures to make known the city's concerns about aggregate operations in and around Kerrville.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, a motion and a second. Do we have any speakers?
We did have one speaker, Bill Morgan, but he's declined and he's left the building.
All right. I hope we can get his statement just for our purposes. All right. We got a motion and a second. All in favor, let it be known by that raised hand. Okay, good. All right. We are adjourned.